Have you ever forgotten your phone? When did you realize you'd forgotten it? I'm guessing you didn't just smack your forehead and exclaim, "Damn!" apropos of nothing. The realization probably didn't dawn on you spontaneously. More likely, you reached for your phone, pawing open your pocket or handbag, and were momentarily confused by it not being there. Then you did a mental recap of the morning's events. Shit. In my case, my phone's alarm woke me up as normal, but I realized the battery was lower than I had expected. It was a new phone and it had this annoying habit of leaving applications running that drained the battery overnight. So, I put it on to charge while I showered instead of into my bag like normal. It was a momentary slip from the routine, but that was all it took. Once in the shower, my brain got back into the routine it follows every morning, and that was it. Forgotten. This wasn't just me being clumsy. As I later researched, this is a recognized brain function. Your brain doesn't just work on one level, it works on many. Like, when you're walking somewhere, you think about your destination and avoiding hazards, but you don't need to think about keeping your legs moving properly. If you did, the entire world would turn into one massive hilarious Quap cosplay. I wasn't thinking about regulating my breathing. I was thinking whether I should grab a coffee on the drive to work. I did. I wasn't thinking about moving my breakfast through my intestines. I was wondering whether I'd finish on time to pick up my daughter Emily from the nursery after work or get stuck with another late fee. This is the thing. There's a level of your brain that just deals with routine, so that the rest of the brain can think about other things. Think about it. Think about your last commute. What do you actually remember? Probably little, if anything. Most common journeys blur into one, and recalling any one in particular is scientifically proven to be difficult. Do something often enough and it becomes routine. Keep doing it and it stops being processed by the thinking bit of the brain and gets relegated to a part of the brain dedicated to dealing with routine. Your brain keeps doing it without you thinking about it. Soon, you think about your route to work as much as you do keeping your legs moving when you walk. Most people call it autopilot, but there's danger there. If you have a break in your routine, your ability to remember and account for the break is only as good as your ability to stop your brain going into routine mode. My ability to remember my phone being on the counter is only as reliable as my ability to stop my brain entering morning routine mode, which would dictate that my phone is actually in my bag. But I didn't stop my brain entering routine mode. I got in the shower as normal. Routine started. Exception forgotten. Autopilot engaged. My brain was back in the routine. I showered, I shaved, the radio forecasted amazing weather. I gave Emily her breakfast and loaded her into the car. She was so adorable that morning. She complained about the bad sun in the morning blinding her, saying it stopped her having a little sleep on the way to the nursery, and we left. That was the routine. It didn't matter that my phone was on the counter, charging silently. My brain was in the routine, and in the routine my phone was in my bag. This is why I forgot my phone. Not clumsiness, not negligence, nothing more than my brain entering routine mode and overriding the exception. Autopilot engaged. I left for work. It's a swelteringly hot day already. The bad sun had been burning since before my traitorously absent phone woke me. The steering wheel was burning hot to the touch when I sat down. I think I heard Emily shift over behind my driver's seat to get out of the glare. But I got to work, submitted the report, attended the morning meeting. It's not until I took a quick coffee break and reached for my phone that the illusion shattered. I did a mental restep. I remembered the dying battery. I remembered putting it on to charge. I remember leaving it there. My phone was on the counter. Autopilot disengaged. Again, there lies the danger. Until you have that moment, the moment you reach for your phone and shatter the illusion, that part of the brain is still in routine mode. It has no reason to question the facts of the routine. That's why it's a routine. The act of repetition. It's not as if anyone could say, "Why didn't you remember your phone? Didn't it occur to you? How could you forget?" You must be negligent. This is to miss the point. My brain was telling me the routine was completed as normal, despite the fact that it wasn't. It wasn't that I forgot my phone. According to my brain, according to the routine, my phone was in my bag. Why would I think to question it? Why would I check? Why would I suddenly remember, out of nowhere, that my phone was on the counter? My brain was wired into the routine, and the routine was that my phone was in my bag. The day continued to bake. The morning haze gave way to the relentless fever heat of the afternoon. Tarmac bubbled. The direct beams of heat threatened to crack the pavement. People swapped coffees for iced smoothies. Jackets discarded, sleeves rolled up, ties loosened, brows mopped. The park slowly filled with sunbathers and barbecues. Window frames threatened to warp. The thermometer continued to swell. Thank fuck the offices were air-conditioned. But, as ever, the furnace of the day gave way to a cooler evening. Another day, another dollar. Still cursing myself for forgetting my phone, I drove home. The day's heat had baked the inside of the car, releasing a horrible smell from somewhere. When I arrived on the driveway, the stones crunching comfortingly under my tires, my wife greeted me at the door. "Where's Emily?" Fuck. As if the phone wasn't bad enough, after everything I'd left Emily at the fucking nursery after all. I immediately sped back to the nursery. I got to the door and started practicing my excuses, wondering vainly if I could charm my way out of a late fee. I saw a piece of paper stuck to the door. Due to vandalism overnight, please use side door, today only. Overnight? What? The door was fine this morning. I froze. My knees shook. Vandals. A change in routine. My phone was on the counter. I hadn't been here this morning. My phone was on the counter. I'd driven past because I was drinking my coffee. I'd not dropped off Emily. My phone was on the counter. She'd moved her seat. I hadn't seen her in the mirror. My phone was on the counter. She'd fallen asleep out of the bad sun. She didn't speak when I drove past her nursery. My phone was on the counter. She changed the routine. My phone was on the counter. She changed the routine and I'd forgotten to drop her off. My phone was on the counter. 9 hours. That car. That baking sun. No air. No water. No power. No help. That heat. A steering wheel too hot to touch. That smell. I walked to the car door, numb, shocked. I opened the door. My phone was on the counter, and my daughter was dead. Autopilot disengaged. It was 2:04 a.m. on the 2nd of January. I woke up to a knocking on the door. One knock every 3 seconds. I slipped on my slippers and walked down the stairs. As I walked down, the knocking on the door got faster, almost like a heartbeat. When I got to the door, the knocking stopped. I looked outside and nobody was there. I went back up to my room and went back to bed, thinking it was just some kids playing a prank. At 4:20 a.m., I woke up to the front door slamming shut. I jumped, terrified. I looked over at my frosted window to find "Smile" written all over it in frost. I grabbed my phone next to me, ready to call 911, only to find a message written on it saying, "I told you to smile." I cried and ran for my life, running outside. As soon as I got outside, I knocked on my neighbor's house across the road. They answered and held me while I sobbed. They phoned the police at exactly 5:42 a.m. The police came to my neighbor's house after an extensive search of my house. They told me there had been no evidence at all of anyone in my house other than me. The messages on the window were gone, same with my phone. They told me to get some sleep and advised me to see a doctor about my stress and anxiety problems. Fuck that. I knew what happened to me was real. The following evening, after spending the day at my neighbor's, I went home. I went up to my bedroom and set up a camera. It was aimed at my bedroom door and my bed. I set it to record and went to sleep. Thankfully, I slept through the night. However, as I watched the footage, I couldn't believe what I saw. At 3 a.m, something crawled out from under my bed. It was a completely naked, anorexic man. He stood up and looked at me on the bed. He did so for another hour, not moving at all. Then he moved. He walked over to the camera until his face took up the whole shot. He was extremely pale and had bulging veins all over his head. His eyes were completely black, with a huge smile on his face. He stared at the camera for another 2 hours, not blinking, just slightly twisting his head every now and then. After 2 hours of him staring went past, he walked back over to my bed and crawled under. I skipped the video forward until it showed me getting up and walking over to the camera. The video finished. I was frozen with fear. The video showed him going back under, but not leaving. Whatever it was still here. Living on the 12th floor wasn't bad. The view over the busy city was pleasant to look at. The only problem was those elevators. I have bad sinuses, you see, and the pressure of descending quickly gives me headaches. But it passes, so it's an easy sacrifice. I waited for the elevator to arrive on my floor. It always takes a while. After a while, I got impatient and started fumbling around with my pockets. While I was fondling the keys in my pocket, I realized one of the elevators had already arrived. Doors wide open even. I hadn't heard the ping of the floor indicator, nor had I heard the doors creak open. I shrugged it off and went inside. I should have left the elevator then and taken the stairs. The air was immediately denser, hot and sticky. The faint stench of onions tickled at my nostrils, but I figured it was some dirty neighbor's lingering odor. Again, I had noticed that the doors had moved without my noticing, as the warm natural light was now gone. The elevator jumped for a second before descending. The creaking of the walls and cable jolted my nerves. The pressure in my ears slowly began to build, although this time it gradually formed into a horrible migraine, pushing in on my temples. The floor indicator reads 12. How was that possible? The elevator was obviously broken, and suddenly I feared it would drop. The trip was taking much longer than expected, and I was very eager to get off this fucking thing, but it kept rattling as it went further and further down. The lights flickered out and died, leaving me in complete darkness. The air was getting noticeably heavier, and the smell of decaying fruit filled my nose and mouth. It was almost too much to bear. I began to cough and gag. I needed to escape. I began banging on the walls, shouting, screaming for help, but nothing. No reply. It was as if the metal casing had taken me somewhere else. The elevator suddenly bounced and lurched to a stop, the sound of its shrieking brakes echoing through the shaft. The indicator displayed a bright red G, the only light I could see. How long did it take? It doesn't matter. At least I'm about to get out. The door shuddered and crept open. There was barely any light in what looked like the lobby, but I could make out something wet coating the walls. A red, spongy fungus. There were no people in sight, only a few discarded items of clothing, bags, and groceries. I slowly ventured out into the dark room, the floor squishing beneath my steps. I felt a slight breeze coming from just ahead, so I inched forward to discover the source. I could just make out a large black hole in the center of the large hall. Emanating from a gaping maw was heavy sound of something. Breathing? Something behind me clinked. I spun around to see a mug rolling on a table, and what looked like a pale foot disappear into a doorway. Quiet tapping echoed all around me. Wherever I am not alone. Excerpt from a local newspaper. Ominous unknown killer is still at large. After weeks of unexplained murders, the ominous unknown killer is still on the loose. After little evidence has been found, a young boy states he survived one of the killer's attacks and bravely tells his story. "I had a bad dream and I woke up in the middle of the night," says the boy. "I saw that for some reason the window was open, even though I remember it being closed before I went to bed. I got up and shut it once more. Afterwards, I simply crawled under my covers and tried to go back to sleep. That's when I had a strange feeling, like someone was watching me. I looked up and nearly jumped out of my bed. There, in the little ray of light, illuminating from between my curtains, were a pair of 2 eyes. These weren't regular eyes. They were dark, ominous eyes. They were bordered in black and just plain out terrified me. That's when I saw his mouth. A long, horrendous smile that made every hair on my body stand up. The figure stood there, watching me. Finally, after what felt like forever, he said it. A simple phrase, but said in a way only a madman could speak. He said, "Go to sleep." I let out a scream. That's what sent him at me. He pulled up a knife, aiming at my heart. He jumped on top of my bed. I fought him back. I kicked. I punched. I rolled around, trying to knock him off me. That's when my dad busted in. The man threw the knife. It went into my dad's shoulder. The man probably would have finished him off if one of the neighbors hadn't alerted the police. They drove into the parking lot and ran towards the door. The man turned and ran down the hallway. I heard a smash like glass breaking. As I came out of my room, I saw the window that was pointed towards the back of my house was broken. I looked out it to see him vanish into the distance. I can tell you one thing. I will never forget that face. Those cold, evil eyes, and that psychotic smile. They will never leave my head. Police are still on the lookout for this man. If you see anyone that fits the description in this story, please contact your local police department. Jeff and his family had just moved into a new neighborhood. His dad had gotten a promotion at work, and they thought it would be best to live in one of those fancy neighborhoods. Jeff and his brother Lou couldn't complain, though. A new, better house, what's not to love? As they were getting unpacked, one of their neighbors came by. "Hello," she said. "I'm Barbara. I live across the street from you. Well, I just wanted to introduce myself and to introduce my son." She turns around and calls her son over. "Billy, these are our new neighbors." Billy said hi and ran back to play in his yard. "Well," said Jeff's mom, "I'm Margaret, and this is my husband Peter, and my 2 sons, Jeff and Lou." They each introduced themselves, and Barbara invited them to her son's birthday. Jeff and his brother were about to object, when their mother said that they would love to. When Jeff and his family were done packing, Jeff went up to his mom. "Mom, why did you invite us to some kid's party? If you haven't noticed, I'm not some dumb kid." "Jeff," said his mother, "we just moved here. We should show that we want to spend time with our neighbors. Now, we're going to that party and that's final." Jeff started to talk, but stopped himself, knowing that he couldn't do anything. Whenever his mom said something, it was final. He walked up to his room and plopped down on his bed. He sat there looking at the ceiling when suddenly he got a weird feeling. Not so much a pain, but a weird feeling nonetheless. He dismissed it as just some random feeling. He heard his mother call him down to get his stuff, and he walked down to get it. The next day, Jeff walked down the stairs to get breakfast and got ready for school. As he sat there, eating his breakfast, he once again got that feeling. This time, it was stronger. It gave him a slight tugging pain, but he dismissed it once again. As he and Lou finished breakfast, they walked down to the bus stop. They sat there waiting for the bus, and then, all of a sudden, some kid on a skateboard jumped over him, only inches above their laps. They both jumped back in surprise. "Hey, what the hell?" The kid landed and turned back to them. He kicked his skateboard up and caught it in his hands. This kid seemed to be about 12, 1 year younger than Jeff. He wears an Aeropostale shirt and ripped blue jeans. Well, it looks like we got some new meat." Suddenly, 2 kids appeared. One was super skinny and the other was huge. "Well, since you're new here, I'd like to introduce ourselves. Over there is Keith." Jeff and Lou looked over to the skinny kid. He had a dopey face that you would expect a sidekick to have. "And he's Troy." They looked over at a fat kid. Talk about a tub of lard. This kid looked like he hadn't exercised since he was crawling. "And I," said the first kid, "am Randy. Now for all the kids in this neighborhood, there's a small price for bus fare, if you catch my drift." Lou stood up, ready to punch the light out of the kid's eyes, when one of his friends pulled a knife on him. "Tisk, tisk, tisk. I had hoped you would be more cooperative, but it seems like we must do this the hard way." The kid walked up to Lou and took his wallet out of his pocket. Jeff got that feeling again. Now it was truly strong. A burning sensation. He stood up, but Lou gestured for him to sit down. Jeff ignored him and walked up to the kid. "Listen here, you little punk. Give back my bro's wallet or else." Randy put the wallet in his pocket and pulled out his own knife. "Oh? And what will you do?" Just as he finished the sentence, Jeff popped the kid in the nose. As Randy reached for his face, Jeff grabbed the kid's wrist and broke it. Randy screamed and Jeff grabbed the knife from his hand. Troy and Keith rushed Jeff, but Jeff was too quick. He threw Randy to the ground. Keith lashed out at him, but Jeff ducked and stabbed him in the arm. Keith dropped his knife and fell to the ground, screaming. Troy rushed him too, but Jeff didn't even need the knife. He punched Troy straight in the stomach and Troy went down. As he fell, he puked all over. Lou could do nothing but look in amazement at Jeff. "Jeff, how'd you—" That was all he said. They saw the bus coming and knew they'd be blamed for the whole thing, so they started running as fast as they could. As they ran, they looked back and saw the bus driver rushing over to Randy and the others. As Jeff and Lou made it to the school, they didn't dare tell what happened. All they did was sit and listen. Lou just thought of that as his brother beating up a few kids, but Jeff knew it was something more. It was something scary. As he got that feeling, he felt how powerful it was. The urge to just hurt someone. He didn't like how it sounded, but he couldn't help feeling happy. He felt that strange feeling go away, and stay away for the entire day of school. Even as he walked home due to the whole thing near the bus stop, and how now he probably wouldn't be taking the bus anymore, he felt happy. When he got home, his parents asked him how his day was, and he said in a somewhat ominous voice, "It was a wonderful day." Next morning, he heard a knock at his front door. He walked down to find 2 angry police officers at the door, his mother looking back at him with an angry look. "Jeff, these officers tell me that you attacked 3 kids, that it wasn't regular fighting, and that they were stabbed. Stabbed, son." Jeff's gaze fell to the floor, showing his mother that it was true. "Mom, they were the ones that pulled knives on me and Lou." "Son," said one of the cops, "we found 3 kids, 2 stabbed, 1 having a bruise on his stomach, and we have witnesses proving that you fled the scene. Now what does that tell us?" Jeff knew it was no use. He could say him and Lou had been attacked, but then there was no proof that it wasn't them who attacked first. They couldn't say that they weren't fleeing, because truth be told, they were. So Jeff couldn't defend himself or Lou. "Son, call your brother down." Jeff couldn't do it, since it was him who beat up the kids. "Sir, it was me. I was the one who beat up the kids. Lou tried to hold me back, but he couldn't stop me." The cop looked at his partner, and they both nod. "Well, kid, looks like a year in juvie." "Wait," says Lou. They all looked up to see him holding a knife. The officers pulled their guns and locked them on Lou. "It was me. I beat up those little punks. I have the marks to prove it." He lifted up his sleeves to reveal cuts and bruises, as if he was the one in a struggle. "Son, put down the knife," said the officer. Lou held up the knife and dropped it to the ground. He put his hands up and walked over to the cops. "No, Lou, it was me. I did it." Jeff had tears streaming down his face. Poor bro, trying to take the blame for what I did. Well, take me away." The police led Lou out to the patrol car. "Lou, tell them it was me. Tell them. I was the one who beat up those kids." Jeff's mother put her hands on his shoulder. "Jeff, please, you don't have to lie. We know it's Lou. You can stop." Jeff watched helplessly as the cop car speeds off with Lou inside. A few minutes later, Jeff's dad pulled into the driveway, seeing Jeff's face and knowing something was wrong. Son, what is it?" Jeff couldn't answer. His vocal cords were strained from crying. Instead, Jeff's mother walked his father inside to break the bad news to him as Jeff wept in the driveway. After an hour or so, Jeff walked back into the house, seeing that his parents were both shocked, sad, and disappointed. He couldn't see how they thought it was Lou when it was clearly his fault. He just went to sleep, trying to get the whole thing off his mind. 2 days went by, with no word from Lou at JDC, no friends to hang out with, nothing but sadness and guilt. That is until Saturday, when Jeff is woke up by his mother with a happy, sunshiny face. "Jeff, today is the day," she said as she opened the curtains and let light flood into his room. "What? What's today?" asked Jeff as he stirs awake. "Why, it's Billy's party." He was now fully awake. "Mom, you're joking, right? You don't expect me to go to some kid's party after." There was a long pause. "Jeff, we both know what happened. I think this party could be the thing that brightens up the past days. Now, get dressed." Jeff's mother walked out of the room and downstairs to get ready herself. He fought himself to get up. He picked out a random shirt and a pair of jeans and walked down the stairs. He saw his mother and father all dressed up. His mother in a dress and his father in a fancy suit. He wondered why they would even wear such fancy clothes to a kid's party. "Son, is that all you're going to wear?" said Jeff's mom. "Better than wearing too much," he said. His mother pushed down the feeling to yell at him and hid it with a smile. "Now, Jeff, we may be overdressed, but this is how you go if you want to make an impression," said his father. Jeff grunted and went back up to his room. "I don't have any fancy clothes," he yelled down the stairs. "Just pick something out," called his mother. He looked around in his closet for what he would call fancy. He found a pair of black dress pants he had for special occasions and an undershirt. He couldn't find a shirt to go with it, though. He looked around and only found striped and patterned shirts, none of which would go with dress pants. Finally, he found a white hoodie and put it on. "You're wearing that?" they both said. His mother looked at her watch. "Oh, no time to change. Let's just go," she said as she herded Jeff and his father out the door. They crossed the street over to Barbara and Billy's house. They knocked on the door, and it appeared that Barbara, just like his parents, way overdressed. As they walked inside, all Jeff could see were adults, no kids. "The kids are out in the yard, Jeff. How about you go and meet some of them?" said Barbara. Jeff walked outside to a yard full of kids. They were running around in weird cowboy costumes and shooting each other with plastic guns. He might as well be standing in a Toys R Us. Suddenly, a kid came up to him and handed him a toy gun and hat. "Hey, wanna play?" he said. No, kid, I'm too old for that stuff. The kid looked at him with that weird puppy dog face. Please, said the kid. Fine, said Jeff. He put on the hat and started to pretend to shoot at the kids. At first, he thought it was totally ridiculous, but then he started to actually have fun. It might not have been super cool, but it was the first time he had done anything that took his mind off of Lou. So he played with the kids for a while, until he heard a noise. A weird rolling noise. Then it hit him. Randy, Troy, and Keith all jumped over the fence on their skateboards. Jeff dropped the fake gun and ripped off the hat. Randy looked at Jeff with a burning hatred. Hello. Jeff, is it? We have some unfinished business. Jeff saw his bruised nose. I think we're even. I beat the crap out of you and you sent my brother to juvie. Randy got an angry look in his eyes. Oh no, I don't go for even. I go for winning. You may have kicked our asses that one day, but not today. As he said that, Randy rushed Jeff. They both fell to the ground. Randy punched Jeff in the nose, and Jeff grabbed him by the ears and headbutted him. Jeff pushed Randy off of him, and both rose to their feet. Kids were screaming and parents were running out of the house. Troy and Keith both pulled guns out of their pockets. No one interrupts or guts will fly, they said. Randy pulled a knife on Jeff and stabbed it into his shoulder. Jeff screamed and fell to his knees. Randy started kicking him in the face. After 3 kicks, Jeff grabs his foot and twists it, causing Randy to fall to the ground. Jeff stood up and walked towards the back door. Troy grabbed him. Need some help? He picks up Jeff by the back of the collar and throws him through the patio door. As Jeff tries to stand, he is kicked down to the ground. Randy repeatedly starts kicking Jeff until he starts to cough up blood. Come on, Jeff, fight me! He picks up Jeff and throws him into the kitchen. Randy sees a bottle of vodka on the counter and smashes the glass over Jeff's head. Fight! He throws Jeff back into the living room. Come on, Jeff, look at me! Jeff glances up, his face riddled with blood. I was the one who got your brother sent to juvie, and now you're just going to sit here and let him rot in there a whole year? You should be ashamed. Jeff starts to get up. Oh, finally, you stand and fight. Jeff is now to his feet, blood and vodka on his face. Once again, he gets that strange feeling, the one which he hasn't felt for a while. Finally, he's up, says Randy as he runs at Jeff. That's when it happens. Something inside of Jeff snaps. His psyche is destroyed. All rational thinking is gone. All he can do is kill. He grabs Randy and pile drives him to the ground. He gets on top of him and punches him straight in the heart. The punch causes Randy's heart to stop. As Randy gasps for breath, Jeff hammers down on him, punch after punch. Blood gushes from Randy's body until he takes one final breath and dies. Everyone is now looking at Jeff. The parents, the crying kids, even Troy and Keith, although they easily break from their gaze and point their guns at Jeff. Jeff sees the guns trained on him and runs for the stairs. As he runs, Troy and Keith fire at him, each shot missing. Jeff runs up the stairs. He hears Troy and Keith follow up behind. As they let out their final rounds of bullets, Jeff ducks into the bathroom. He grabs the towel rack and rips it off the wall. Troy and Keith race in, knives ready. Troy swings his knife at Jeff, who backs away and bangs the towel rack into Troy's face. Troy goes down hard, and now all that's left is Keith. He is more agile than Troy, though, and ducks when Jeff swings the towel rack. He dropped the knife and grabbed Jeff by the neck. He pushed him into the wall. A bottle of bleach fell down on top of him from the top shelf. It burnt both of them, and they both started to scream. Jeff wiped his eyes as best as he could. He pulled back the towel rack and swung it straight into Keith's head. As he lay there bleeding to death, he let out an ominous smile. "What's so funny?" asked Jeff. Keith pulled out a lighter, switched it on. "What's funny," he said, "is that you're covered in bleach and alcohol." Jeff's eyes widened as Keith threw the lighter at him. As soon as the flames made contact with him, the flame ignited the alcohol and vodka. While the alcohol burned him, the bleach bleached his skin. Jeff let out a terrible screech as he caught fire. He tried to roll out the fire, but it was no use. The alcohol had made him a walking inferno. He ran down the hall and fell down the stairs. Everybody started screaming as they saw Jeff, now a man on fire, drop to the ground nearly dead. The last thing Jeff saw was his mother and the other parents trying to extinguish the flame. That's when he passed out. When Jeff woke, he had a cast wrapped around his face. He couldn't see anything, but he felt a cast on his shoulder and stitches all over his body. He tried to stand up, but he realized there was some tube in his arm, and when he tried to get up, it fell out, and a nurse rushed in. "I don't think you can get out of bed just yet," she said as she put him back in bed and reinserted the tube. Jeff sat there with no vision, no idea of what his surroundings were. Finally, after hours, he heard his mother. "Honey, are you okay?" she asked. Jeff couldn't answer, though. His face was covered, and he was unable to speak. "Oh, honey, I have great news. After all the witnesses told the police that Randy confessed to trying to attack you, they decided to let Lou go." This made Jeff almost bolt up, stopping halfway, remembering the tube coming out of his arm. "He'll be out by tomorrow, and then you two will be able to see each other again." Jeff's mother hugs Jeff and says her goodbyes. The next couple of weeks were those where Jeff was visited by his family. Then came the day where the bandages were to be removed. His family were all there to see it, what he would look like. As the doctors unwrapped the bandages from Jeff's face, everyone was on the edge of their seats. They waited until the last bandage holding the cover over his face was almost removed. "Let's hope for the best," said the doctor. He quickly pulls the cloth, letting the rest fall from Jeff's face. Jeff's mother screams at the sight of his face. Lou and Jeff's dad stare awestruck at his face. What happened to my face?" Jeff said. He rushed out of bed and ran to the bathroom. He looked in the mirror and saw the cause of the distress. His face. It's horrible. His lips were burnt into a deep shade of red. His face was turned into a pure white color, and his hair singed from brown to black. He slowly put his hand to his face. It had a sort of leathery feel now to it. He looked back at his family, then back at the mirror. "Jeff?" said Lou. "It's not that bad." "Not that bad," said Jeff. "It's perfect." Jeff started laughing uncontrollably. His parents noticed that his left eye and hand were twitching. Jeff, are you okay?" "Okay, I've never felt more happy." "Look at me. This face goes perfectly with me." He couldn't stop laughing. He stroked his face, feeling it, looking at it in the mirror. What caused this? Well, you may recall that when Jeff was fighting Randy, something in his mind, his sanity snapped. Now he was left as a crazy killing machine, that is, but his parents didn't know. "Doctor," said Jeff's mom, "is my son all right? You know, in the head?" "Oh, yes. This behavior is typical for patients that have taken a very large amount of painkillers. If his behavior doesn't change in a few weeks, bring him back here and we'll give him a psychological test." "Oh, okay. Thank you, doctor." Jeff's mother went over to Jeff. "Jeff, sweetie, it's time to go." Jeff looks away from the mirror, his face still formed into a crazy smile. "Okay, Mommy." His mother took him by the shoulder and took him to get his clothes. "This is what came in," said the lady at the desk. Jeff's mom looked up and down to see the black dress pants and white hoodie her son wore. Now they were clean of blood and now stitched together. Jeff's mother led him to his room and made him put on his clothes. Then they left, not knowing that this was the final day of their life. Later that night, Jeff's mother woke to a sound coming from the bathroom. It sounded as if someone was crying. She slowly walked over to see what it was. When she looked into the bathroom, she saw a horrendous sight. Jeff had taken a knife and carved a smile into his cheeks. "Jeff, what are you doing?" Jeff looked over to his mother. "I couldn't keep smiling, Mommy. It hurt after a while. Now, I can smile forever." Jeff's mother noticed his eyes ring black. "Jeff, your eyes!" His eyes were seemingly never closing. "I couldn't see my face. I got tired and my eyes started to close. I burnt out my eyelids so I could see myself, my new face." Jeff's mother slowly started to back away, seeing that her son was going insane. "What's wrong, Mommy? Aren't I beautiful? Yes, son, she said. Yes, you are. Let me go get Daddy, so he can see your face. She ran into the room and shook Jeff's dad from his sleep. Honey, get the gun. She stopped as she saw Jeff in the doorway holding a knife. Mommy, you lied. That's the last thing they hear as Jeff rushes them with a knife, gutting both of them. His brother Lou wakes up, startled by some noise. He didn't hear anything else, so he just shuts his eyes and tried to go back to sleep. As he was on the border of slumber, he got the strangest feeling that someone was watching him. He looked up before Jeff's hand covered his mouth. He slowly raised the knife, ready to plunge it into Lou. Lou began to thrash, trying to escape Jeff's grip. Shh. Just go to sleep. It's early morning. The sun won't be up for another couple of hours. You're fast asleep in bed, lost in a dream, when the phone rings. Rather than waking up, you roll over and cover your head with a pillow. Hours pass. The sun rises. The phone is ringing. When you wake up, your alarm clock is blaring, and the phone is ringing. By the time you will yourself to turn, the alarm is off. The phone has stopped ringing. You realize that it's been ringing all morning. You slide out of bed and press the blinking red button on your phone as you stumble into the bathroom. The phone beeps, followed by the friendly electronic voice. Hello, you have 666 new messages. Message 1. The phone beeps again, and you're not prepared for what comes next. Screaming. You spin around, thinking that she's standing right behind you. There's pure terror in her screams, accompanied by other disturbing noises. You stand there, horrified, for about 10 seconds. Screaming gives way to hysterical, garbled crying before dying out, with the sounds of spilling meat and tearing flesh. The phone beeps again. You're shaking. Message 2. I'm doing this for you, and for Mike too, I guess. Though I don't think there's much I can do to help him at this point. I suppose I should provide some background information first. I'm a sophomore in a fairly good university in Boston. No, not MIT or Harvard, but still one that's a bit more of a chore to get into. My freshman year, I had the option to live in honors housing, and decided to roll with it. After all, at least the people would be interesting. Whatever arcane algorithm they used to process roommate requests took in my preferences and spat out the name of my future roommate, Mike. Just another random honors kid from St. Louis. The two of us got along fine for most of freshman year, my enjoyment of Miley Cyrus notwithstanding, so we decided to room together sophomore year as well. Now, Mike had always been a pretty obsessive guy. He tended to bounce around in his interests. One week, he would devour entire series of anime, only to start watching random online episodes of Mystery Science Theater 3000, and then begin working his way through the archives of the hottest new webcomic. And, of course, like any real obsessive, he would keep me posted on his latest craze. I humored him. What else are roommates for? One day earlier this week, he started telling me random scary stories. You know, those random things you find on message boards. I think his main source ended up being some site called Creepypasta. I never understood why pasta could be creepy, but whatever. I'd hear about a med student eating an arm, or someone being autopsied alive, or some random YouTube video that will drive you insane. We usually had a good laugh about them. The third day of his obsession, however, things got weird. He threw a few more stories my way before hitting the sack, but something seemed a little off. His voice had a sharp edge to it. As the hour got later, his banter got more and more inane, as though he were talking just to stave off having to go to sleep. Eventually, I pointedly got into bed and rolled over, effectively ending any further chance at conversation. I wish I hadn't. I sleep like a log, and that night was no exception. I don't think I even came close to waking. Usually I can't remember any of my dreams, but the nightmare I had that night has been clear in my mind for days now. I dreamt I was trapped in a fog so dense I couldn't see my hands in front of my face. The damp air sent chills down my spine. I could hear muffled screams in the distance. There didn't seem to be any words, just guttural shrieks of pain. Instantly, don't ask me how, I recognized the screams as Mike's. I tried my best to run to him, but my feet just slid through the fog. I couldn't get any real traction on the ground, if there indeed was any ground. The screams got further away and more indistinct, though I could tell they were still Mike's. Eventually they faded to nothing and I woke up. And every last trace of Mike was gone from my room. Everything. His laptop, his sheets, the official zombie survival guide poster on the wall, the heap of trash he let accumulate on half of the windowsill. Everything. A thick layer of dust coated his entire side of the room. Absolutely nothing on my side of the room had been touched, nor had any of his stuff in the bathroom, the kitchen, or the living room of our suite. Only in the bedroom had anything been taken. I couldn't believe it. I prayed it was a dream. I pinched my elbow until the skin was red, until my fingernails drew blood. When I didn't wake up, I dialed campus security, who quickly brought in the Boston Police Department. I was immediately kicked out of the room so they could go over everything with a fine-tooth comb. I think I must have been in shock. I felt completely numb, like nothing around me really mattered. I'd left my laptop in our suite's common room, so I used that to distract myself, or try to at any rate. When I popped open the laptop, however, a Word document stared at me. Its text was the following. I know this is stupid. I can't help but think how much I'll regret this in the morning, but for some reason I'm genuinely scared, and I feel like this is the only way I can tell someone why. So here it goes. Earlier, I was scouring the net for horror stories, rituals, tales of scary places, and the like. I came across this warning, I guess it was. I won't say what, and I won't say where, for fear of you finding it yourself. Suffice it to say, it sent chills down my spine, something not much has managed to do. Still, as has become my habit, I just clicked onto the next hyperlink going even further down the rabbit hole. The warning stayed with me, though, in the back of my head, just nibbling away, waiting until I would focus on something else to rear its ugly head. This was irrational, I knew. My mind was just playing tricks on me. Some ancestral fear had been played upon, some age-old nightmare that was just that, a nightmare. No more, no less. But that didn't make the fear go away. Only when I looked at the clock to see how long I had until you got back, it dawned on me I had passed the time allotted to me by the warning to stop what was coming. Any vagueness is out of concern for you, I promise. And then the real anxiety kicked in. My palms started to sweat and my eyes refused to stay closed for more than a second at a time. All my hair stood on end, and I could feel my heart rate start to increase. Instantly, I knew that the warning had been real, and I had failed to heed it. My time was limited. It was about then that you got home from the TV station. I was so glad to see someone else. I can't imagine how I sounded. Finally, someone to fight the dark off with. A companion against the now terrifying night. But clearly you weren't interested. Your yawns were a dead giveaway. You headed to bed and I, to stave off sleep a little longer, decided to write this. Do me a favor. If I'm wrong, forget this ever happened. If I'm right, warn them. So that's what I'm doing. I'm warning you. Just be careful. Next time you go on an archive binge at Creepypasta, or start checking the horror thread of your favorite discussion board, or even just try Googling creepy stories, if you feel a chill run down your spine at some warning you've never read before, you might want to heed it. If you decide not to, however, if you just click on your merry way, please tell Mike I'm sorry I couldn't get to him in the fog. Dear Theodore, I am the monster hiding under your bed. Personally, I think monster is a bit of a harsh word, but that's what you call me, so that's what I choose to go by. To make it clear, though, I go by many names beyond you. Night Stalker is one. The Shadow Man is another. I think I also may have accidentally started a few legends without meaning to.
Would you believe that Bigfoot may have just been me taking a stroll through the woods? Truly, depending on who sees me, any human can imagine something different. So far, I like your imagination the best. As I'm writing this, you're 6 years old. For all 6, I've been under your bed. I followed you from the NICU and listened to your crying all the way home from the hospital. I admit that the crib was harder to squeeze myself under, but I managed. I'm grateful you've since upgraded to a big boy bed. It's a lot easier on my back. As you've grown, you leave the house more and more. I'd forgotten that children go to school so young until I heard you return, excitedly rambling to your ignorant parents about things you'd learned. Mrs. Thomas sounds nice from what you say. I approve of her, for now. Anyone can sound nice coming from you, though, because you tend to see the best in people. It's a quality that gives me hope. This world needs more people with infinite optimism like yours, and you can quote the big scary night monster on that. In fact, you even try to find good things in me. When the moon casts a hideous mix of shadows and light into your room, and the fear of my very presence makes you tremble, I hear you whisper to me, "I'm scared. Are you scared too?" It's clear that you don't know who you're talking to. To you, I am nothing but a nameless creature with no aim or purpose, just an undetermined maliciousness. You don't even seem to know what I would hypothetically do to you, should you fall asleep while I'm around. In the daytime, you think you're safe from me. Do you think shadows simply disappear, little one? If I wanted to hurt you, I would. You drew me once when you were 4. The crumpled paper ended up under the bed with me. You've never truly seen me, and your art skills were underdeveloped to say the least, so of course there were a few inconsistencies. Your illustration depicted a haphazard gray scribble with pointed teeth and horns, and too many claws to count, almost like a sickly, demonic porcupine. I couldn't help but be amused when I saw it. I won't say you were completely wrong. I suppose I mention all this because I know you know nothing about me, but I know so much about you. In fact, I'd like to think I know you better than you know yourself. I know that you don't like vegetables, but will eat any fruit placed in front of you. I know that your favorite cereal is Reese's Puffs, even though you rarely get to eat them. I know that you only know one curse word, but you're afraid to say it out loud. I know that you want to be a firefighter, but 2 months ago, you wanted to be a construction worker, and you will end up being neither. I know the names of all your friends and which ones will turn out to betray you in the future. I know the names of your first and second girlfriends, and your first and only boyfriend. I know you love your parents, even though they hurt you. I know the age at which you'll die. I also know how to stop it. Though I do know a lot of things, I'm not sure when this letter will reach you. In fact, I'm not sure you will ever read it. I wish I could say that I was positive you'd understand why I'm about to do what I plan to do, and that you'd support my decision when you grow older. But the truth is, I don't know if you ever will. The only thing I'm 100% clear on is that I won't regret doing what I'll do to them. They deserve the punishment they'll receive, because at night, when the tree branches look like giant claws at your windows, and the darkness seems to be moving in closer, I know it's not me you're truly afraid of. Deep inside, in a place your mind cannot yet access, you're afraid of your parents. I'm scared. Are you scared too? You ask the question not over the sounds of me, but over them. They fight and spat like wild animals, a never-ending cyclone of neglect and anger. You have no idea how they act when you're gone, flourishing in the temporary safety that a classroom brings you. You cannot yet fathom the amount of pain they will bring you when they realize you've become too old to coddle, and just old enough to treat you like they treat each other. You would be so good without them, much better off, I assure you. It'll hurt for a while, but you're still young. The pain will fade and then you'll be free. Free from their chaos and self-destruction and abuse. You'll be able to live the life you want with no one to hold you back. One day, if you read this, you'll understand why I took them away from you. And I hope then that you'll thank me. I hope the nightmares of your parents' blood will slowly fade into a background hum, replaced by that endless optimism I know you hold so close. And when that day comes, I hope you realize that I care for you more than they ever did. Eternally yours, the monster still under your bed.
I'd heard stories about what confinement in the cramped quarters of a submarine can do to a man. Sure, those in charge of training screen for that type of instability, but the occasional nutter does make it onto the crew sometimes. That was never me, though. I spent a year and a half preparing myself for life on a submarine, and I had no fears about what was in store for me. The common conditions that caused fear in lesser men, I had expected. However, it's the unexpected where true fear lies. I hadn't expected the primary power to go out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and that had me tense. I was even less prepared for when the engine stopped working, and that pushed me to being scared. As madness set in for the crew around me, I tried to stay brave and get things civil again, but every man has his breaking point. The sound of steel groaning under the building pressure of the ocean water was mine. Cracks and pops joined the groans as the vessel sank deeper into the abyss. The already tight corridors warped and became even tighter as every surface around me began to slowly compress. Knowing my fate, I looked for something to end it quickly, but unfortunately I was struggling for shallow breaths when the walls pinned me in place. And then the sub stopped sinking, stopped shrinking, ocean floor. Now, unable to move a single muscle in my body, I pray for something unexpected to happen, because I know my fate. And in this pitch-black vice, I've never been so terrified. Somewhere in New York City, there is an old homeless man, missing both of his legs from the knees down. He can be spotted on the streets, along the corner of Lexington and East 21st, near Gramercy Park. Approach him after nightfall, give him some change, no pennies or dimes, and ask him, "What did you see on the other side?" He will then tell you all about his travels to the other realms and times, where he lost his legs and how he lost his money. It is up to you whether to believe him or not, but as you listen, you'll find yourself being drawn in with every story. You must stay alert, or the old man will notice your inattentiveness, and with a scowl, he will stop imparting his wisdom. He will chase you as fast as he can, tottering on his stubs. The other reason why you must stay alert is to check the time. Before midnight, you must interrupt him. Do not let him finish whatever story he's telling you at that moment. And say, "I've heard enough, old man. Good day and good luck." Then walk away. Make at least 2 left-hand turns around the block before going about your business. You must do this, because anyone who has stayed to listen past midnight is never seen again, at least not in this particular plane of existence. A couple months ago, my friend's cousin, a single mother, bought a new cell phone. After a long day of work, she came home, placed her phone on the counter, and went to watch TV. Her son came to her and asked if he could play with her new cell phone. She told him not to call anyone or mess with the text messages, and he agreed. At around 11:20, she was drowsy, so she decided to tuck her son in and go to bed. She walked to his room and saw that he wasn't there. She then ran over to her room to find him sleeping on her bed with the phone in his hand. Relieved, she picked her phone back up from his hand to inspect it. Browsing through it, she noticed only minor changes such as a new background and banner. But then she opened up her saved pictures. She began deleting the pictures he had taken until only one new picture remained. When she first saw it, she was in disbelief.
It was her son sleeping on her bed, but the picture was taken by someone else above him, and it showed the left half of an elderly woman's face. Dead leaves lay scattered across the ground. A cold breeze sends the empty branches swaying. It's the most wonderful time of the year, and my favorite part is all the sweet, sweet candy. I reach down to take a piece, tongue salivating in anticipation of the sugar. Then I see it, the damn sign reading "Children in costume may take one piece." Well, damn, no costume this year means no candy.
Aren't you going to take a piece?
Nah, the sign says I can't.
Oh, I don't think anyone would mind if you just take one piece.
Well, it is just one piece. I glanced around, then swiped a piece, plopping it straight into my mouth. The chocolate melted away, bringing a rush of happy juice straight to my brain. Yet, the taste faded, leaving me with a craving for more.
Why not take one more? 1 piece, 2 pieces, 0 pieces. The difference is completely unnoticeable.
Damn, their words struck a chord, resonating through my whole body as truth. It's not a big deal, they won't even notice. Hell, they are the ones who chose to discriminate against people who aren't dressed up. As I passed by, I quickly snagged a second piece on my way out. Normally the streets are left empty at night. People like to stay inside when the sun starts to head down, but tonight is Halloween, and there is a magic in the air that brings us all out into the fresh air. I was pulled from my enjoyment of the spectacle by a voice.
So many people in costumes, pretending to be something they're not, and people reward this behavior with free candy. Yet, people like you, people who really appreciate the Halloween spirit and celebrate by simply being your true self, are cut off from the flow of free candy. Free for them, but not for you.
God, this guy makes a lot of sense. It's not fair that they get all the candy, but it's not like I can do anything about it.
What if you could? What's to stop you from simply taking a bag of candy and running off with it?
I looked at the kids scattered about with bulging sacks. I wanted that bag. Nah, it ain't right to take their candy. It would literally be taking candy from a baby.
But they are the special ones. They get candy just given to them. They can always just get more. Don't take their candy. You go home empty, sad, rejected. Take their candy. They just have to knock on another door to get some more. And you get to right the wrong of not sharing when they have so much.
After their words, I only felt resentment towards the people on the streets. But most of them were just dumb kids, and it ain't right to take candy from a kid.
Most of them. Not all of them. Look. See. Take.
A man was walking down the street in an Old West outfit with a big shiny sheriff badge, and next to him was a kid dressed the same, but their badge read deputy. They both held a bag of candy, each one of them take a piece at each stop. Well, fuck this grown-ass man out trick-or-treating. That ain't right. If you want candy as an adult, just go buy your own damn candy. My blood started to boil as I watched this prick get more and more candy.
You don't want to take candy from a kid. Well, that doesn't look like any kind of kid to me. Look at him, another corrupt sheriff, using their power to wrongfully take from the people. Someone should really do something about this.
Fuck, he is right. Someone should do something about this.
You could be someone.
His words filled me with purpose and righteous anger that drove me forward in a dash right up to that corrupt sheriff. Then I punched him right in the face, only pausing for a moment to grab his now dropped bag of candy before booking it. I could hear the horse hooves beating behind me as I ran. The sheriff's posse had assembled behind him as they came after me. I swung around a corner and hid between two bushes, trying not to gasp for breath as the horses dashed past me, riders hooting and hollering about how they were going to get revenge for the deputy. I felt confused by this because I shot the sheriff, but I didn't shoot the deputy. After they were long gone, I picked up my treasure and placed a piece in my mouth. The candy sent happy feelings flowing all over. Each piece tasted so much sweeter than the last, and taking it from the sheriff just makes it all the sweeter. I chuckled to myself thinking about how they would be out searching the hills for weeks, yet they would never catch me because I am a smooth criminal. All too soon the candy was gone and I just needed it. I had to have more, yet the streets were now empty. Not a person in sight to take their candy.
Oh, I see that look in your eyes. Got a taste for it, haven't you? Don't look so sad. Just look and use a little imagination. There is always opportunities if you can see them.
I looked around, desperate for anything that could hold candy. Then I noticed a large piñata sitting by a house. I paused for a moment to see if anyone was watching. Then I rushed up to take my new prize. I couldn't lift it, so I simply dragged it away. Damn, this thing is heavy.
Yes, just imagine how full of treasure it is.
As I worked to drag it off, I did just what the voice said. The promise of chocolates, caramels, and gummy bears filled my mind and kept me pulling and sweating the whole way home.
Excellent work, friend. Now let's crack this open to get to the deliciousness locked inside.
Grabbing my baseball bat, I placed myself over it and took 3 long breaths before swinging down with all my might. Blood and brains splattered across the driveway, and I dropped the bat, clattering to the ground, frozen by the cold chill of shock as I watched the blood flowing out of the body. A clawed hand dug into my shoulder.
Just look at that. Isn't it beautiful?
Thanks for listening, and remember, you cannot hide from the void.